The little girls screamed as their mother threw them onto the bed and started packing her clothes into a bag. Her face was hard with anger, like someone ready to fight the whole world. "Rose, the children are crying. They need you," her husband, Mr. Daniel, said gently. But Rose answered with a cold, sharp voice, "They're no longer my problem. I'm leaving you." She kept stuffing her clothes into the bag without looking at him. "Please don't go," Mr. Daniel begged. "If not for me, then stay for the sake of these innocent children God gave us." Rose turned to him and snapped, "I didn't marry you to suffer. Since you can't give me the life I want, I'm done. Don't come looking for me. As for the babies, do whatever you want with them. I don't care." She paused, twisted her lips bitterly, and added, "To be honest, I don't even care if they live or die." With that, she zipped up her bag and stormed out of the house, slamming the door hard behind her. Once, there was peace between Mr. Daniel and his wife. But everything changed the day he lost his job. From then on, Rose kept threatening to leave. She complained about everything, the tiny room they moved into, the simple food they had to eat. Mr. Daniel kept begging her, not only because he loved her, but for the sake of their baby girls, Sarah and Ruth, who were just 3 months old. But Rose never listened. Mr. Daniel picked up the babies and gently held them close. Even though they kept crying, he rocked them back and forth until they slowly calmed down. Looking at their innocent faces, his heart felt heavy, but his voice was firm. "I may not have money to give you the best life," he whispered, "but I promise I will be the best father in the world for you." He rocked them softly, and before long, the twin girls drifted off to sleep. The next morning came with hunger and worry. Mr. Daniel woke up with no food, no money, and 2 crying babies, Sarah and Ruth, needing to be fed. There was no time to feel sorry for himself. He had to act. He had to provide. Since he no longer had an office job, he went out and rented a wheelbarrow. Then he tied the babies to his chest and headed to the market to look for work. He started pushing heavy loads for people. Many stared. Some looked at him with pity. Some smiled and gave him small coins for the babies. One elderly woman, her face full of concern, stopped him and said softly, "You're doing a brave thing." Then she pressed 500 naira into his hand. "This is for the babies." Mr. Daniel bowed his head slightly and thanked her before continuing his work. But not everyone was kind. One loud woman hissed and shouted, "Enjoyment master. When you were busy enjoying yourself in bed, you didn't think about responsibility. Now suffer alone," the woman shouted. Mr. Daniel heard her clearly. Her words cut deep, but he said nothing. He didn't care what people thought. All that mattered to him was that his little girls would be okay. After a long day of hard work, Mr. Daniel came home. Even though he had spent the whole day pushing heavy loads while carrying his babies, he felt thankful. He had made enough money to take care of them. That evening, he went to a nearby pharmacy and spoke with the pharmacist. He explained his situation and asked for help with what he needed to feed his daughters. The kind pharmacist made a list for him. It had baby milk and some simple medicine for their care. Mr. Daniel paid for everything and went home, feeling grateful. Day after day, he continued to work with the twins tied to his chest. He had no one else to help. His mother had passed away, and he had no sisters. It was hard, but he never complained. In fact, he felt joy knowing he was able to care for his girls. At first, he didn't think he could do it, but now he was managing, and the babies were doing fine. One Monday morning, as he stepped out with his wheelbarrow, a familiar voice called out to him. It was Mama Esther, an elderly neighbor. She walked up and said, "Let me take the babies today. I'll watch over them until you return." Mr. Daniel hesitated. She added gently, "I want to help you. Besides, the sun is too hot for these little ones. Don't worry, I will take good care of them." After thinking for a moment, Mr. Daniel handed the babies to her and went to work. Though he felt lighter without carrying them around all day, his heart was still restless. Those girls were his whole world. Since their mother left, he had built a strong bond with them. He would do anything to protect them. Mama Esther, as everyone called her, was poor but kind-hearted. She cared for the babies with love. She fed them, bathed them, and dressed them gently. When Mr. Daniel returned in the evening, he found his daughters giggling in Mama Esther's arms. He smiled with deep gratitude and took them home. From that day on, Mama Esther helped him whenever he went out to work with his wheelbarrow. The twin girls grew up knowing only two people, their loving father and Mama Esther, the woman they called Mama. Sarah and Ruth didn't attend the best private schools, but their father worked hard to pay their school fees and buy their books. He also taught them to be kind, respectful, and hardworking. At 18, the twins graduated from the community secondary school. Mr. Daniel was filled with pride. The girls studied hard for their WAEC and JAM exams. Sarah scored 325 in JAM. Ruth scored even higher, 341. Both got admission to study medicine and surgery at the same university. But that was when the real struggle began. One afternoon, Sarah and Ruth came home laughing, full of excitement. They ran to their father and handed him their printed JAM result slips. Mr. Daniel smiled and congratulated them. "Oh, my daughters, you've done well. I'm so proud of you. Now I can walk in the city with my shoulders high. My daughters will soon become doctors," he said, puffing out his chest and pretending to walk like an important man. They all laughed together. The house was full of joy. Later that night, Mr. Daniel went quietly into his room, and his smile slowly disappeared. He sat on the edge of the bed, heavy-hearted and silent. He had no money, not even enough to sponsor one daughter, let alone both. He was completely broke. He lowered his head and whispered to himself, "All these years of hard work. Now my daughters have made it, and I can't pay their fees." He felt like he was sinking, helpless and ashamed. But then he clenched his fists and muttered, "No, I won't let money stop them. I will do whatever it takes. My daughters must become doctors." The next morning, Mr. Daniel rose very early, long before the twins woke up. But this time, he didn't carry his wheelbarrow. Deep down, he knew the little income from that old barrow would never be enough. He walked with heavy steps to the house of a wealthy man in the neighborhood and asked to speak with him. The rich man, still in his pajamas, looked at him with suspicion. "What brings you to my house this early?" he asked. Mr. Daniel dropped to his knees and said, "Please, sir, take me as your house help. I will do anything. Wash your clothes, cook your food, sweep your compound. Just help me send my two daughters to the university. I will work for you like a servant until they graduate." He explained how Sarah and Ruth were his life, the only joy left in his world. He begged the man with all his heart. But the rich man shook his head and said coldly, "Training two students in medicine and surgery is no small thing. I will not do it." Mr. Daniel stood up quietly and left. He didn't stop there. He went to 5 more wealthy homes, one after another. Each time, he knelt and begged, offering his labor in exchange for his daughter's education. But they all said no. Tired and broken, Mr. Daniel returned home. For 2 days, he came back from work without saying much. He was quiet. His heart was heavy. He didn't know how to tell his daughters that their dreams might not come true. But one evening, he gathered his courage and called them into his room. "My daughters," he said softly, "I'm sorry. I failed you both. Please forgive me. I made a promise long ago, when you were little, that I would send you to school no matter how far. But now, I don't even have enough to send you to the university." He tried to stay strong, but his voice broke. He turned his face away and swallowed hard to hold back the tears. Ruth stood up and said gently, "Daddy, there's nothing to forgive. We know how much you love us. We know you would have sent us even to the moon if you had the money." Sarah added, "Whether we go to university or not, we will always love you." They both wrapped their arms around their father and hugged him tightly. That night, when Mr. Daniel was sure his daughters were asleep, he knelt quietly beside his bed and began to pray with tears in his eyes. "God, please help me. I have nothing, but you have everything. My girls deserve this chance. Please, Lord, help me send them to school." His voice was low, but the pain was deep. He wept bitterly, his hands pressed against the floor. His shoulders shook as he begged like a man drowning in sorrow. But Sarah and Ruth were awake. They heard everything. It broke their hearts. All their lives, their father had been their rock. He never cried, never complained, even when life was hard. But tonight, he was weeping because of them. They buried their faces in their pillows and sobbed quietly. The next few days passed with quiet sadness in the house. Sarah and Ruth though heartbroken, stayed strong. They made a bold decision. They went to the university and deferred their admission. It was painful, but they had a plan. They wanted to work, save money, and help their father by next year. One day, they went out together to look for a job. After many rejections, they finally found one in a clean and decent restaurant. Sarah and Ruth started working there immediately. They greeted customers with smiles, served food with care, and showed respect to everyone. Customers liked them and often gave them good tips. Some men tried to take advantage of their poverty, but the twins stood their ground. They refused to sell their dignity. Sarah and Ruth saved almost every penny they earned. At night, they would sit with their father, count their money, and pray together. Mr. Daniel never stopped praying for them. Every day he knelt down and asked God to bless the work of their hands. After about 7 months of hard work, saving, and prayer, Sarah and Ruth opened a small restaurant of their own. It wasn't big, but it was clean, neat, and beautifully arranged. They cooked tasty meals and treated every customer like family. They also used social media to advertise. Before long, customers began coming in large numbers. The little restaurant became popular. Sarah and Ruth were finally rising. They continued saving every bit of money they made. The dream of becoming doctors still burned in their hearts. But life had its own plans. One evening, after a long, tiring day, Sarah was cleaning the tables when she noticed a black briefcase under one of the chairs. "Look, Ruth," she said, holding it up. "Someone must have forgotten this." Curiosity got the better of them. They opened the briefcase carefully and froze. Inside were many official-looking documents and a thick stack of US dollars. Ruth's eyes widened. This person must be very rich. They didn't waste time. They closed the briefcase and took it home. When Mr. Daniel saw it, he listened to their story quietly, then nodded. "You did the right thing bringing it home. Don't worry, the owner will definitely come looking for it. A bag like this is too valuable to lose." The next morning, the girls returned to the restaurant early with the briefcase. As they arrived, they saw a rich-looking man standing beside a shiny black car, looking worried. When they greeted him, he immediately asked, "Did you happen to see a black briefcase?" "Yes," Sarah replied, reaching into the sack they carried. She handed it over carefully. The man looked at it, visibly relieved. "Thank you very much," he said quickly, collected the briefcase, entered his car, and drove off without another word. Ruth blinked. "He should have at least given us one of those dollars," she joked. Sarah laughed. "So, in your mind now, you want dollars? I'll start calling you Lady Dollars." They both laughed and went back to work. The restaurant was still small, just the two of them running it, but they remained hopeful. Every day was a step forward. Around midday, as the sun blazed over the busy streets, the same man returned in his shiny car. This time, he wasn't in a hurry. He stepped out and smiled at them. "I'm Prince Tony," he said, introducing himself. "For your honesty and faithfulness, I want to reward you." Sarah and Ruth exchanged hopeful glances, expecting maybe some money. But to their surprise, Prince Tony didn't hand them cash. Instead, he took them to a large, impressive building. "This is for you," he said. "The documents in that briefcase were far more valuable than the money. You saved my family by keeping it safe. Now I want you to have this building for your restaurant. It's all yours." Sarah and Ruth stood frozen in shock. They couldn't believe it. After all their struggles, this felt like a dream come true. Tears filled their eyes as they thanked him again and again, their hearts overflowing with joy. They quickly took a taxi and rushed to the market to find their father. They saw him standing by his wheelbarrow, drinking a cool glass of kunu. Without a word, they ran to him and wrapped their arms around him. People in the market stared, amazed to see these two beautiful young women embracing the poor man. Mr. Daniel laughed, shaking his head in disbelief. "Sit down," he said with a warm smile. "Let me buy you some kunu." They sat with him, sipping the cool drink, their excitement bubbling over. Finally, Ruth spoke. "Daddy, we have a surprise for you." "What is it?" Mr. Daniel asked, his curiosity rising. They didn't explain. Instead, they stood up and motioned for him to follow. Mr. Daniel got up immediately and went with them. When they reached the large building, Ruth's voice rang out with joy. It's ours, Daddy. The man who lost the briefcase gave it to us. He said we should open our restaurant here. Tears of happiness filled Mr. Daniel's eyes. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The restaurant, the new beginning, the reward for his daughter's honesty. It was everything he had ever dreamed of for them. They celebrated together, laughter and joy filling the air as they stood in front of the building that was now theirs. That evening at home, Sarah and Ruth sat down with their father. They could see the strain in his face, the years of hard labor etched into his skin. Dad, Sarah spoke softly but firmly, it's time for you to stop pushing the wheelbarrow. You're not getting any younger. This kind of work is for younger men, not for you. Ruth nodded in agreement. We got this now. You gave us everything we needed to rise. Now it's time for you to rest. Mr. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but the determination in their eyes stopped him. He felt a deep, quiet pride. That day, he agreed to retire from his hard labor. Prince Tony didn't just give them the building. He furnished it with chairs, tables, plates, and pots, everything they needed to succeed. Sarah and Ruth poured their hearts into making the restaurant perfect. Soon, it was bustling with life. The atmosphere was warm and classy, the food mouth-watering, the service kind and patient. Customers flocked in. The restaurant was no longer just a business. It became a symbol of hope, a way out of poverty, a dream born from struggle and perseverance. Most importantly, they took care of their father. He no longer worked in the scorching sun. They treated him like a king, providing for him in ways he had never imagined. His tired, weathered hands no longer pushed heavy loads. Instead, he spent his days in peace, knowing his sacrifices had borne fruit. Sarah and Ruth also remembered those who helped them along the way. There was Mama Carol, the kind woman who had cared for them when they were small. She was old now, often sick, but dear to their hearts. They renovated her little house, paid her hospital bills, and made sure she lacked nothing. One afternoon, a weary woman walked into the restaurant. Her clothes were worn, her eyes full of desperation. What do you want? One of the waitresses asked gently. I'm looking for a job, the woman said, her voice trembling. I can wash plates, mop the floors, serve food, anything, please. I just need work. Though there was no vacancy, Sarah and Ruth felt an unexplainable pull toward her. They decided to offer her a chance. She would wash dishes. What they didn't know was that this woman was Linda, their mother. After 3 failed marriages to wealthy men, she was left with nothing. The life she had chased had collapsed, leaving her broken and alone. The next day, Mr. Daniel came to visit his daughters. After their usual warm greetings, he walked into the kitchen and froze. Linda was there. She hadn't seen him, but he saw her. Memories flooded back like a storm. Quietly, he stepped back, his heart pounding, and called Sarah and Ruth aside. Do you have a new dishwasher? He asked calmly. Yes, Daddy, Sarah said. Do you know her? No, they replied, confused. But why do you ask? Mr. Daniel's voice was heavy, slow, and deliberate. That woman is Linda, your mother. Ruth's eyes widened. What? Our mother? Yes, he said. After she left, I burned every picture of her. I wanted to forget. That's why you've never seen her face. They walked together into the kitchen. Linda turned, and her face turned pale as she saw him. Her lips trembled. Mr. Daniel spoke steadily, though his heart was heavy. The women who employed you, they're your daughters. Linda's legs almost gave way. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, I'm so sorry. My daughters. I am so sorry. Her words came out in soft sobs, her head bowed in regret. Sarah's face hardened, her hands trembling. You have to leave, she said firmly. She picked up a handful of cash on the counter and handed it to Linda. This is more than you've worked for. Go. I don't know you, and you're not my mother. My mother is Mama Carol, not a stranger. Her voice broke on the last words, but the pain in her heart burned fiercely. Ruth, who had been quiet, wrapped her arms around her sister. I know you're hurting, Sarah. So am I, she said gently. But please, don't send her away. Not now. She needs our help. Sarah's tears flowed freely. I don't want to help, she whispered. Pointing at Linda, she cried out, This woman left us. She went her way while we suffered with our father. She left us to die. The pain in her voice was deep and real. The truth finally came out of her heart. Her sobs filled the room, heavy and sharp. The tears just kept falling. But slowly, as she let it all out, she began to feel a little lighter. The heavy sadness eased, even if only for a moment. Linda, her hands shaking, reached out to them. Her voice was filled with regret. "I am sorry, my daughters. Please forgive me. I was young, foolish, and selfish. Please forgive me." That evening, Mr. Daniel sat with his daughters, his face showing quiet sorrow. The talk that followed was tough. The air felt heavy, but in the end their hearts softened. They forgave Linda, even though it was not easy. The next day, Sarah and Ruth gave Linda a new role in the restaurant. They didn't want her to keep washing dishes. She would become the matron, looking after the place and showing she could be responsible and respectful. At first, Linda seemed to bring a kind touch to the restaurant. The workers had no problem with her, and the customers liked her gentle presence. But after a while, things changed. Linda's temper started to show. Her once soft voice turned sharp and bossy. She began scolding workers for little mistakes, her attitude turning sour like spoiled food. The restaurant's mood became tense. Workers avoided her, and customers started to notice the change. Slowly, like water leaking from a cracked pot, the customers stopped coming as much. The warmth and happiness that once filled the place faded away. Sarah and Ruth saw the change, but didn't know how to fix it. Their hard work seemed to be slipping away. One evening, they sat their mother down, their faces serious and worried. They wanted to talk about her behavior, hoping she would listen. But Linda's pride was clear. "I am your mother," she said sharply, her voice cold. "I brought you into this world. You cannot tell me what to do." Sarah, hurt by her mother's words, tried to stay calm. "You are here to help us, but your behavior is destroying everything we've built." Linda's eyes narrowed, and she fired back. "Where is your father? The one you keep sending money to? He's lazy, just sitting at home, and you give him everything. But me? You only give me my salary." Sarah's face darkened with anger. "If you ever speak badly about my father again, we will have a problem," she said firmly. But Linda wasn't done. "You don't love me," she snapped bitterly. "You're just managing me here." The talk turned into a heated argument, neither side ready to back down. Finally, after the tense night, Sarah and Ruth went to their father, tired and upset. Mr. Daniel listened quietly before speaking, his voice heavy with wisdom. "She is still your mother, but if you keep her in the restaurant, she will destroy everything you've worked for." After thinking long and hard, Sarah and Ruth made their choice. The next day, they told Linda she would no longer work in the restaurant. Her reaction was quick and full of anger. "I know it's your foolish father who poisoned your minds against me," she shouted, her voice shaking with rage. The insult cut deep, but Sarah and Ruth stood their ground. They watched as their mother, Linda, stormed off, her harsh words still hanging in the air. Even with all the pain she caused, the twins didn't leave her helpless. They opened a small shop for her right in front of her house, so she could manage it on her own. It wasn't the perfect solution, but it was something. Mr. Daniel, though hurt by everything that had happened, still missed the old days. Part of him wished he could bring Linda back as his wife to start over again. But her behavior had gone too far, and he couldn't ignore the wounds she had left behind. Meanwhile, the restaurant thrived. With Linda gone, the atmosphere became warm again, and business picked up fast. Word spread about their great food and kind service. Soon, the restaurant was booming like never before. Sarah and Ruth even expanded, opening new branches in other cities across Nigeria. Their hard work had paid off, not just in money, but in peace of mind. Their father was happy and free from the stress that had once clouded their home. The restaurant became the heart of their success story. Now that money was no longer a problem, the twins sat down one evening to talk about their old dream of becoming medical doctors. Sarah spoke first, her voice gentle but sure. "The fire isn't in me anymore. I love our business." She looked around at the busy restaurant, the happy customers, the hard-working staff, and felt a deep sense of pride. What once was a dream of medicine now felt distant, almost unnecessary compared to the purpose they found here. Sarah nodded with a warm smile. This business is God's answer to our Father's prayers. I don't want to be a doctor either. I love what we've built. Their eyes sparkled. Not for a medical career, but for the future of the restaurant and the lives they could touch through it. As time went on, suitors began to come for Sarah and Ruth. They were ready to begin a new chapter, marriage. Excitement filled the air as they planned their weddings and chose to marry on the same day, sharing the celebration together. But one thought troubled them, leaving their father alone. After some thinking, they decided to talk to him. One afternoon, they sat with Mr. Daniel, a little nervous but determined. Sarah began softly. Father, we know you are happy that we've found husbands, but we worry that you are still alone. Not all women are like our mother, and we believe there are good women out there. Ruth added, Daddy, we found a kind woman we think would make you happy. Mr. Daniel looked at them with gentle curiosity. Who is she? Ruth smiled. She works in one of our restaurants. She's been very kind to us, and we often ask her for advice. Her husband passed away, and she has 2 children. If you marry her, they will be like our younger siblings, and will help with their education. Mr. Daniel was surprised at first. He stayed quiet for a while, then finally said, I need time to think. After 2 days of reflection, he agreed. He met Madame Ruth, the woman they had spoken about, and after getting to know her, he saw that she was genuine and kind. The wedding was set to happen on the same day as Sarah and Ruth's. On that joyful day, the church was filled with love as Mr. Daniel, Sarah, and Ruth all got married. Mama Esther, who had been like a mother to them, proudly stood as the chief mother of the day, a true sign of love and unity in their family. It was a day of fresh beginnings, not just for the twins, but for their father too. Please subscribe and share this story with friends. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.